However, you mentioned issues like lack of faith, lack of practice, declining population. What would be your solution to rectifying this?
I think the solution is the same for everybody. It's preserve, protect, and promote. The problem that we're facing as a community, or in any community really,
Is to action it.
is to action it. But why? We can't action it because everybody's definition of preserve, protect, and promote are different. So and when I say everybody, I mean all 60,000 of us or 80,000 have their own definitions. But we can sort of make it into two groups and say we have a liberal perspective, we have a traditional or conservative perspective. Mm-hmm. Now, without going into sort of pulling things out of scripture and talking about what's right and what's wrong according to scripture. If you want to preserve and protect, we really have to address these two fundamentally different idea systems, right? Because if you look at a liberal, from a completely, let's just look at what we actually see happening in society. Never mind what the Avesta says, never mind what the Avesta scholars say, never mind what the Orthodox say, never mind all that. But if we just look at what's going on, basically, if you are a liberal, if you have a liberal mindset, the idea is that everybody will say to you, we must change with the times, change with the times. So what does change with the times mean? It means things like forget about our purity rights. Koi time ma hoy, koi chokhu nahi hoy, ave chalse, Karaj time ma manaso nahi bhi ave, but they don't remember how to do the chokhe in the house. They don't remember how to keep everything clean. So those things are an issue. Then there's issue of Zarthoshti. So it's inconvenient. We have to change with the times. Now the girls don't want to wear this. Now the boys don't want to wear this. Now there's science that's in here. So they're willing to change all that. Then the other thing is they're open to reform. If you are a liberal, you're open to reform. Reform in any aspect. And everybody has their own ideas of how we should reform the community. And in reforming, basically you're saying to the rest of the community that we want to abandon certain rites, certain ritual. No, I don't mean right as in your right to do something. I mean rites and rituals as a religious practice. Yes. So religious practices are being abandoned. And they don't mind it. Then we have the issue of individuals trying to make reform. They just want to make it easy for the next generation to hold on. They're afraid. So out of their fear, they want to change everything, and out of also their feeling that they maybe at certain levels there's a lack of knowledge, of the spiritual knowledge, I would say, of why certain things are happening. So if they don't have that understanding, it's a big thing even in the courts today. They think we are against women's rights and everything. But that is not the case. So if they have to take the time to understand all that. Anyways, as a liberal, you want to make reforms. Simple as that. As a liberal, you're also open to conversion. So conversion to keep the numbers. So we face a declining in numbers. And the intent of the liberals is very good. I'm not saying that their intent is badly placed. They are doing their best in their way. But we are not in agreement if you are traditional. So if you want to convert somebody into becoming a Zoroastrian, first of all, there are some very basic moral issues which I will not agree with in that, because my own family, we have, like every family, there's people who are married out in your family, there are people from the LGBTQ community, I have an adopted brother who is a Hindu. Now, the thing is, my parents brought him up as a Hindu. They did not convert him. It is his actual right to be a Hindu. It's his birthright. You cannot take that away from a person. If you really, really want to truly practice harmony cultural diversity, if you really want to practice truth, then the truth is that person that you want to convert is not a Zoroastrian, that he has or she has his own religion, that there's a prophet out there somewhere saying, that soul is mine. So if we don't come to those basic human rights understandings, not at the level of the social. On a social level, I completely agree with the liberals. I completely agree. Schooling should be for everybody. Housing should be for everybody. Medical should be for everybody. I agree with all of these things. Suman is my brother. He is 100% a family member in our family. 100%. But when it comes to religion, he doesn't come to our Jasans. He doesn't come to a Jasan. He respects it. Why does he respect it? Because we respect who he is. He is a Hindu. So he is now so engrossed in his own Hindu culture. His children are so engrossed into their Hindu culture. What ultimate crime we would have done, or my parents would have done, if they had pretended, Topi Piravine, Zarthoshti Piravani, if they had pretended that he is a Parsi? Oh, just to make him comfortable in the family. What is this? We are based on truth. Our religion is based, the fundamental aspect of our religion is truth. How can we abandon that truth? So there's other ways to deal with it. Deal with all this multicultural families, multi-religious families. Deal with it kindly. Deal with it in a way that you are respecting, but you don't have to change that which you do not have the right to change. So as a liberal, definitely you do have all these sort of thoughts, and they come from a good place. But as a conservative person or a traditional person, I would ask them, if you're going to change with the times, if you're going to reform, then what are we preserving? If you're going to say abandon Zarthoshti, abandon Chokhe rights, abandon if we're going to abandon all these things, what are we preserving? We're just preserving a building, an infrastructure.
What for?
What for? So these are the things. Biju Bisu ke ultimately, although you're making me, you're putting me on the spot here, but I'm going to say it. But ultimately, in a very positive way, I want to say, and I want whoever's listening, and if you're a liberal and if you're listening, understand that this is coming from a very experience of our own personal experience, as well as a very good place in my heart. It's not coming from a bad place. I love my brother. I love my nephews and nieces and whoever, even if they're married out, if they are lesbian or gay or whatever you want to call them, I love them dearly. But let us just look at the issue of conversion differently. You bring somebody into a family. First of all, the non-Zoroastrians are not wearing Zarthoshti. They are not able to maintain this chokhe at the level that we want it to be maintained. Apre akho gear chokhuki delu hoy. Apre badda Zarthoshti perelu hoy. Apre badda no atmosphere, personal atmosphere pure ki delu hoy. To ave I manas ave ne bese as good as they are, as beautiful people as they are, vaddu che Zarthoshti nathi peryo. Ave pachal bese. Make okay, pachal bese ne pachisum jasan purut hase. Once the jasan is over, then what are you going to say to that person? Ave now please don't eat the preyed on fruit. Now please don't touch this. Now please don't come here. Or please don't come in the kitchen when you is this the way you want to treat somebody? It is better for them to accept, and better for you to accept from the beginning that you don't want to wash down your culture. Because if you do that, first of all, we're losing our language. You have another person in the house. You have to change your language. You cannot speak in Gujarati, it's rude. You cannot just do your own customs, it's rude. Then you have the loss of customs because of a kharab luggage. And we all are human. We are all going to feel kharab. We cannot hurt. And that is the whole thing. That is why the liberals are gaining so much momentum, because Parsis in general are kind. They don't want to hurt anybody. But then the way of doing it is not this. We cannot abandon our entire culture because we are worried about somebody's feelings. Respects have to be two ways. you're respecting that person. You respect that your sibling or your son or your daughter has made a choice to marry outside. You can respect that, but then they have to respect that you are also going to maintain your culture and your religion in the house. Do they accept? I'm always opposed with this question. कि Havove, now we have to accept. આપણે શું કરીએ? આપણે શું કરીએ? આપણા બચ્ચાઓ બહાર જાય, આપણે શું, આપણને હવે બધું છોડી દેવું પડશે. આપણે શું કરીએ? But it is not about આપણે શું કરીએ. It is you have to ask your children before they get involved, before they get into any kind of a relationship, make it aware to them. कि can you accept कि કદાચ તારો ભાઈ Nata, elokona bachao, because your brother will be married to a Parsi, that they will have Justans, they will have Naujuts, they will have everything, they will be able to go to a Gyari and Atasbiram, but your children will not. Will you be able to accept all those things? Will you be able to accept a Gere Justan Hoseto you will not be able to attend? Will you be able to accept those things? These are the things we have to tell our kids from the beginning. Acceptance is a two-way street. Respect is a two-way street. So as a traditional, if you want to maintain, like I don't see how anything can be maintained if you're going to let everything go. Then there's no point. Pachi to bale, we are just a handful of people. Nature will take its course. But the khalas tejasu, there will be nothing left like a Parsi Irani, Zoroastrian. There will be nothing left like Zoroastrianism as we know it today. Are the customs that we want to preserve and protect today. The Dungarvari that we have come here today, kapre gyer kariye, ete kariye, so that when we are old we can have access to Dungarvari. We will not have any of that if we decide that we just have to change everything with the times. So
sadly, as we see it, one compromises lead to another.
Compromise.
And then the cookie crumbles.
Yes, compromise is the devil's advocate. It's absolutely the devil's advocate.
Absolutely.
So,
one other issue which comes to mind, which we are all facing on a regular basis, and which also contributes to whatever you've spoken about right now, is the attitude and the numbers of priests that we have. As we all know, we are facing a serious challenge on the number of priests that are available to us. Earlier we used to see, even if you see Iransha itself, used to have priests thronging the place. Kriyas are happening in abundance. People are just around. If you needed any support on the religious front, on the ceremonies front, you had enough people to do it. Today you don't see so many people. Even in Agyaris in Bombay, where the Parsi community is in large numbers, you find many a times Mobbeds just not being able to hold on. He's the only person. One Mobbed is giving boy in all 5 gays and doing all the ceremonies possible. He's not getting a substitute. He cannot go on leave. I've known of people who are delaying surgeries because they have nobody to take care of the holy fire. I mean, we are getting into a bad place as far as that issue is also concerned. Can I have your views on that, please? How do we get around this issue? We don't have more kids coming into the vocation as of now. Because the older generation has suffered to some extent. They've gone through a lot of hardship. They don't definitely want their children to get into that area of hardship. But when that happens, the youngster gets demotivated. He doesn't want to go further into that vocation. How do we maintain the priesthood? We all realize one thing. There is no Mobbed, there is no religion. I mean, I would like to know your thoughts on how do you perceive this issue? And more importantly, do you have a resolution for this? Any ideas on how to go ahead with this?
I have a suggestion maybe, but it might not be something.
No, but first I'd like to hear your views on this problem.
Yeah.
How do you see it? Is it a problem? Is it not one?
It is a huge problem, and the Mobbeds are facing problems not only for financial issues. Of course, it is a major thing.
It is.
And that is basically the blame rests on our shoulders, community shoulders. They have to be reimbursed properly. They need a decent standard of living. Having said that, however, it's not just a Mobbed problem. It is a community problem. Because if there's no faith in the community, it's very difficult for the Mobbeds to keep the faith. You know, I have a friend who is Christian, actually a family, a Christian family. They call me a real rebel. I said, why do you call me a rebel? They said, because you're trying to talk about God and religion in a world that is without God and without religion. And for us to expect the young Mobbits to carry that torch, it is very difficult, because they are fighting against a world that is faithless. They are fighting against a world that is godless now. That the only time that God comes into the picture is when we want something. We want a better house, we want a better life, we want more income, we want, better car, better health, whatever. That's the only time we bring God into the picture.
Transactional.
Which is transactional. So how do you inspire a Mobbit to keep up his duty? How does a young person do this? It is difficult. And I think part of that difficulty is that we, as a community of people, I don't actually like to use the word community, Hanos. I believe that we are not a community. I believe that we are a nation of people. We came here as a nation of people looking for a place to protect our religion. And we have divided ourselves and gone all over the world, but we are a nation, and we are lacking a certain amount of governance for our people. So coming back to the Mobbit thing, as a nation of people, we have to make sure that there is faith. But also, it's difficult for me to say, because I know as a parent you want the best for your children. You want the best for your children. And everybody will want Kimara Bachane Sukara. I hear the Mobbits. You must have seen, you were there in some of the Mazda media's presentations about the decline of Mobbits. And you heard some of the Mobbits who said that, why should my children not be able to go on vacation? Why should my children suffer poverty when everybody else's children are going places, doing things, pursuing their careers? Why do you expect me to have that of my Mobbits, my children? But we are not in a position anymore we are not in a safe position. We are not in a position of peace still. We are still in a position of emergency and exile. So just like today, if India's borders were, China invaded or some other country invaded, if the military was not able to keep up with the invasion, the government would say, folks, send your children to the army. And today, you would pick up a rifle and give it to your son, as much as you don't believe in it, as much as you want the best for him, as much as you don't want him to suffer any bad fate. You will give him that rifle and say, Dikra, go and protect your nation. Go and protect your people. You have to protect your lifestyles, your everything that we have built here for ourselves. Go and protect. Today, our Mobbits, nobody else can do the job that they are doing. It is unfortunate, but they are the only ones who can do it. So if you are of a Mobbit family, if you are a parent, you have an absolute responsibility to make sure that your child enters Mobbity, that your child knows how to perform the Kriya. It's your absolute duty to the community. Nobody else can do it. If you were born a prince, you can't, and the kingdom is going to be handed to you. You can't say, okay, I'm going to give it to some other guy who drives the bus. He can handle it. I don't want to handle it. It's not. It's your birthright. It's your privilege. Try to understand that. Try to understand that it is for you to do. Nobody likes to put their kids through things that they don't want to do, but then kids don't want to go to school either. But we still send them to school. So similarly, you have to send them. And I know there's a little bit of a discussion about education, dharam sikhaviye. But dharam nu sikhawano starts at a very young age. the mind is developed so well of these Mobids. Look at how far they've advanced in legal fields, in medical fields, and any field that they go into, their minds are just so well advanced and their memory retention is so good. I don't think they're hurting the children any bit, any one bit, by making them Mobids and then letting them also pursue another career. If your child definitely doesn't want to, at least the part-time Mobids, as a part-time Mobid, you have to share your time. You have to say, okay, there are 30 part-time Mobids and there is one full-time Mobid. Can we not give that one full-time Mobid a break between the 30 of us? Can we not let that Mobid have 1 month of leave and 30 of us somehow share his responsibilities? So these are the things that we have to, we're always putting material advancement, education, everything as a top priority. But we need to put our nation as a top priority first. Nation comes first, then everything else. That is how I feel.
But nowadays, if you ask anyone or talk to the Mobid community itself, you will normally hear, okay, it's a financial issue, paisa nathi. I have left, a Mobid will say, I have led a life of penury. I have been down in the dumps. Nobody is looking after me or my family, especially in times when I am in need and I am sick and I don't have enough medical, etc., etc. It all seems to be boiling down to finances. What is your view on this? Personally, I don't see it as just a financial problem. Yes, we definitely have a financial issue, but there is another way to look at this whole thing, or maybe resolve this whole thing. I'm not saying you leave a Mobid in that kind of condition. Obviously not. He is a brother. You need to help him out of that state. So what could you possibly do to, get the person on par with the other so that he doesn't feel bad about his vocation? He is equating poverty with morbidity, yes, which is very unfortunate.
Very unfortunate.
And you cannot expect any normal human being to personally accept poverty, though.
Of course.
The ideal behind the whole thing is extremely high. He's serving a king.
He's serving a king. And also, Hanoz, as we discussed a little bit earlier, sometimes hardship brings about our spiritual, brings about the essence of who we are, makes us understand the truth of our being, the truth of why we are here. So a little bit of hardship is always a good thing. However, definitely the community needs the support. There's been a lot of good ideas floating around. Some of them are to amalgamate funds and from all these different associations who want to help Mobids, amalgamate them and make sure that they are being distributed fairly. That's a good idea. Some very prominent and philanthropic Parsis have come up who want to support the Mobids, but I don't know how long that will all last. So, and I don't know how much money that they will need, because
you need something more holistic.
Yeah, you need something more holistic. So those are good temporary solutions. I feel short-term solutions, for sure, they are excellent to get them onto a little bit of a better standing. It has to follow through with a long-term solution. And long-term solutions, long-term solutions also require a lot of money. And I think without reaching out to the general public, you're not going to get that solution. People have to want to contribute part of their income, even 1% of their income, 10% of their income, 5% of their income to this cause. But then they have to have the confidence that it's going to be used correctly. So that is something that, the leaders can work out and make sure. In my opinion, I don't think that there's enough, although that the Parsi community is very well-to-do, I don't think there's enough funds to keep every Mobid where we want them to be. I think a Mobid also has to serve his duty. So if we start flipping our attention from just saving the Mobids or just encouraging the Mobids, if we focus on the real heritage issue, we have all these heritage buildings, Agyaris, Atasvirams, Dungawaris. What kind of staffing do they need to run properly? How many Mobids does an Agyari really need to run properly according to its the despair of the people that are there? And accordingly, if we go from an institutional point of view, like a business would do, I have this institution, how much staff do I need, basically? And then we can do actually try to fix salaries. And in doing that, we have a known amount of Agyaris and a known amount of Adasberams, and we can actually fix a salary base for Mobids. That is one option. The other option is to, if you don't have enough funds, and I know we've talked to many Mobids and some have said, Johnny Dikra Mara Potana Bachaona Vaste, I don't have money to do their lagan, or I don't have money to send them on a vacation, or I don't have money to educate them. But Dana Porya foreign jain educate Taj Mara Porya Natitata. So instead of trying to bring up the level of every single Mobid if we don't have the funds for that, then I would suggest you create one fund, one pot, where at the appropriate time, Mobid Nata Lagan Tatuhoy, to we support that Lagan or Naujot with those funds, or we support maybe 5 or 6 Mobids a year to go to Iran. So you're dealing with two birds with one stone. So you're helping them become enculturated, helping them sink their teeth back into their own roots, and so doing, little by little bit, we can improve their quality of life. Also in my opinion, we have to flip our entire focus. If you are under attack, if your country is under attack, right now if US is under attack, India is under attack, the first thing that will happen is the president or the prime minister will be encompassed, surrounded, and they will take him to a safe place. And then we'll try to protect the country. So similarly, we are under attack from our own selves, from our own reluctance to protect our institutions. So the first thing we should do is protect with whatever funds we have. Make sure first, Iransha is our king. Is it well protected? Does it have enough money, enough funds to support the kind of Mobids it requires? Individual level per sacrifice is Taj. So you mean to say on an individual level, each Parsi cannot do some service to the community, some little bit of help to the community, financially, and also in any way that they can actually physically help the community. So all of these things are necessary. We are in a state of emergency. We have to recognize that. We are not we're not in a peaceful state where we can now just send our kids off to college, we have to realize and put community first, nation first.